Most people think their relationship problems start in adulthood. They think their heartbreak begins when someone cheats, lies, or walks away. But the truth is, your love life didn't start with your first relationship. It started with your childhood, with the way you were loved or the way you were not loved. Childhood trauma plays a fundamental role in shaping our understanding of love. From the earliest moments of life, we absorb subtle cues from parents or caregivers about what it means to be loved. If a child grows up in a home where love is conditional or inconsistent, they internalize these experiences as the standard for relationships. This subconscious blueprint affects adult behavior, often leading people to repeat patterns they experienced as children. The conclusion is that our early experiences silently dictate the way we approach love in adulthood, whether we realize it or not. When love is experienced with fear or neglect in childhood, the brain encodes these experiences as normal. Children who witness constant criticism, emotional coldness, or lack of affection learn to associate love with pain. This often manifests in adulthood as seeking relationships that mirror those early dynamics. The child's survival mechanism teaches them to adapt to unsafe emotional environments, and as adults, they unknowingly gravitate toward partners who trigger familiar emotional patterns. Therefore, the conclusion is that our childhood experiences can create unconscious expectations of love, often leading to unhealthy or self-sabotaging romantic choices. Many adults struggle with boundaries because of the love patterns they learned as children. If a child was rewarded only when pleasing a parent or punished when expressing emotions, they may grow up equating love with approval or sacrifice. This makes it challenging to recognize healthy love, which involves mutual respect and emotional safety. Instead, adults may tolerate toxic behavior or overextend themselves to maintain connection, believing this is how love works. The conclusion is that childhood experiences shape not only emotional responses, but also the very standards by which we judge what constitutes love and acceptance. Emotional neglect in childhood often leads to a craving for validation later in life. Adults who are not seen, heard, or emotionally supported may continuously seek partners who fulfill those unmet needs. This creates a cycle of dependency or attachment to people who are emotionally unavailable. The subconscious mind equates attention, even if inconsistent or manipulative, with affection and safety. As a result, the conclusion is that childhood trauma teaches us to confuse attention and validation with love, making it difficult to identify relationships that are truly nurturing and healthy. Children exposed to trauma often internalize messages that love is scarce or conditional. They may believe that only certain behaviors or achievements earn affection. This belief carries into adulthood, where self-worth becomes tied to performance or pleasing a partner. Consequently, they may constantly fear rejection or abandonment, driving anxiety in relationships. The pattern is deeply ingrained and often invisible to the conscious mind. The conclusion is that childhood trauma doesn't just influence perception of others, it profoundly impacts self-perception and the belief that one is inherently lovable or unworthy of consistent, safe love. Trauma also shapes emotional responses to intimacy. Adults who experienced inconsistent affection as children may find genuine closeness uncomfortable or frightening. They might instinctively push partners away or create conflict to test the security of the relationship. These behaviors are learned survival mechanisms intended to protect the child from emotional pain, but they become barriers to love as adults. Therefore, the conclusion is that childhood trauma conditions emotional reactions, making healthy intimacy feel unfamiliar, unsafe, or anxiety-inducing, even when the relationship is loving and supportive. In many cases, childhood trauma influences how we perceive trust. A child who grew up witnessing betrayal, neglect, or emotional inconsistency may develop a deep-seated belief that love is inherently unsafe. This distrust persists into adulthood, leading to suspicion, jealousy, or reluctance to fully engage in relationships. Even when a partner demonstrates care and loyalty, these individuals may struggle to accept it fully. The conclusion is that childhood experiences can create a persistent lens of skepticism in love, requiring conscious effort and healing to develop trust and vulnerability in adult relationships. Furthermore, the way a child experiences love influences their expectations of emotional intensity in relationships. Those who grew up in chaotic or unpredictable environments often associate emotional extremes, drama, passion, or conflict, with affection. As adults, they may unconsciously seek out similar emotional highs, believing that calm, steady love is dull or unfulfilling. This pattern leads to repeated cycles of unstable relationships. The conclusion is that childhood trauma can distort emotional perception, making ordinary expressions of care feel insufficient, while recreating familiar patterns of emotional turmoil that mirror early experiences. Ultimately, understanding the connection between childhood trauma and our concept of love is essential for healing. By recognizing that many adult relational challenges stem from early experiences, we can begin to break patterns of fear, dependency, or self-sabotage. Healing allows individuals to rewire their expectations and seek relationships that are nurturing, safe, and mutually respectful. The conclusion is that while childhood trauma shapes our beliefs about love, self-awareness, reflection, and emotional work, provide the tools to transform these patterns, creating the possibility of authentic, healthy, and fulfilling adult relationships. Childhood trauma directly influences the development of attachment styles, which govern how we connect with others in adulthood. The way a child experiences love, care, or neglect shapes their unconscious expectations of intimacy. When needs are met inconsistently or unpredictably, children adapt by developing strategies to cope, forming anxious, avoidant, or disorganized attachment patterns. These patterns persist into adult relationships, guiding how people approach closeness, trust, and vulnerability. The conclusion is that attachment styles are not flaws, but survival mechanisms that help children navigate unsafe or emotionally unstable environments. Anxious attachment often arises when children experience inconsistent affection or attention. They grow up constantly seeking approval and reassurance, unsure whether love is reliable. As adults, they may cling to partners, overanalyze interactions, or feel anxious when separated from them. Their fear of abandonment drives behavior that may unintentionally push partners away, creating a self-perpetuating cycle. The conclusion is that anxious attachment is a learned response to childhood insecurity, influencing adult relationships by instilling fear and dependency, even when the partner is loving and trustworthy. Avoidant attachment develops in children who learn to suppress emotions due to rejection or neglect. These children internalize the belief that emotional needs cannot be safely expressed and that vulnerability leads to pain. As adults, they often avoid intimacy, prioritize independence over connection, and struggle with emotional closeness. While they may appear confident or self-sufficient, they secretly fear rejection and suppress their need for love. The conclusion is that avoidant attachment is a protective mechanism formed in childhood, shaping adult behavior by discouraging openness and creating barriers to genuine connection. Disorganized attachment emerges when a child experiences trauma that is both frightening and inconsistent, such as abuse or unpredictable caregiving. These children learn conflicting messages. Love can be dangerous, yet is desired. As adults, they exhibit chaotic behaviors in relationships, swinging between closeness and withdrawal, love and fear. Their relationships are often marked by instability, emotional confusion, and difficulty trusting others. The conclusion is that disorganized attachment reflects the unresolved trauma of childhood, influencing adult relationships through patterns of inconsistency, fear, and emotional turbulence. Attachment styles also affect communication patterns in relationships. Those with anxious attachment may overcommunicate or seek constant validation, while avoidant individuals may withhold feelings or avoid confrontation entirely. Disorganized individuals may alternate between these extremes, leaving partners confused and frustrated. These patterns are not intentional, but rooted in survival strategies developed in childhood. The conclusion is that attachment styles shape relational behaviors, influencing not just how we feel, but how we express ourselves, often creating challenges in forming healthy, balanced partnerships. Childhood trauma and resulting attachment styles can distort perceptions of partner behavior. Anxiously attached adults may misinterpret neutral actions as rejection, avoidant adults may view closeness as smothering, and disorganized adults may see love as both desirable and threatening. These distorted perceptions reinforce old survival patterns, making it difficult to respond to partners in the present moment. The conclusion is that attachment styles shaped by childhood trauma create lenses through which all adult relationship experiences are filtered, often causing misunderstanding, tension, and unnecessary conflict. Attachment styles also influence emotional regulation in relationships. Anxious individuals may experience heightened emotional reactivity. Avoidant individuals may suppress emotions, and disorganized individuals may struggle to manage extremes. These patterns often provoke misunderstandings, hurt feelings, and unresolved conflict. Without awareness, these behaviors repeat across different relationships, reinforcing old trauma cycles. The conclusion is that attachment styles, rooted in childhood experiences, profoundly affect how emotions are expressed and processed in adult love, highlighting the importance of self-awareness and healing to create healthier relational dynamics. These patterns impact choices in romantic partners. Anxious individuals may gravitate toward emotionally unavailable people, seeking reassurance that never fully arrives. Avoidant individuals may choose overly dependent partners to maintain distance. Disorganized individuals may attract partners who mirror chaos or inconsistency. These choices are not conscious but are driven by unconscious attempts to recreate familiar childhood dynamics. The conclusion is that childhood trauma and attachment styles subtly guide partner selection, often leading to repeated cycles of conflict, dissatisfaction, or emotional instability in love life. Understanding one's attachment style is the first step toward breaking these cycles. Awareness allows individuals to recognize patterns, understand triggers, and consciously modify behavior in relationships. Therapy, self-reflection, and emotional work can help reframe attachment responses, fostering healthier intimacy. By understanding the roots of their attachment patterns, people can respond rather than react, communicate effectively, and develop secure relational habits. The conclusion is that attachment styles, while powerful, are not permanent barriers. With conscious effort and healing, they can be reshaped to support fulfilling, balanced, and secure love relationships. Ultimately, recognizing the impact of childhood trauma on attachment is crucial for relationship growth. Attachment styles are blueprints learned in early life, designed to keep children safe, but they can hinder adult intimacy if left unexamined. Healing requires understanding, patience, and intentional effort to replace old survival patterns with secure, healthy behaviors. As individuals become aware of their attachment tendencies, they gain the power to choose love consciously rather than unconsciously. Repeat trauma. The conclusion is that while childhood trauma sets the stage for adult attachment, awareness and healing create the opportunity to build stable, loving, and emotionally fulfilling relationships. Childhood wounds shape our unconscious criteria for choosing romantic partners. The experiences we have as children with love, neglect, or emotional inconsistency create templates that influence attraction. If a child learned that love is conditional, they may gravitate toward partners who require constant effort to be loved. If a child experienced emotional distance, they may feel drawn to unavailable individuals because it feels familiar. The conclusion is that early emotional experiences act as invisible magnets, guiding adult partner choices in ways that often repeat unresolved childhood patterns. People who grew up with inconsistent affection often seek partners who mirror that unpredictability. The uncertainty, tension, or occasional attention triggers familiar emotional responses from childhood. This creates a cycle where individuals unconsciously recreate the instability they experienced, believing it is normal or even exciting. They may tolerate neglect or inconsistency, mistaking it for passion. The conclusion is that the partners we choose are often reflections of our early wounds, demonstrating that without awareness, we continue patterns that mirror childhood experiences rather than cultivating healthy, stable relationships. Individuals with childhood trauma may find themselves attracted to emotionally unavailable partners. This pattern emerges because the mind equates distance with love, replicating the emotional environment of the past. The pain of unavailability feels familiar, while genuine emotional closeness can feel uncomfortable or threatening. These unconscious choices reinforce unresolved wounds and perpetuate cycles of disappointment and heartache. The conclusion is that early emotional neglect teaches us to seek what feels familiar, even when it causes suffering, highlighting the need to break unconscious patterns to foster relationships that are nurturing and emotionally accessible. Childhood wounds also influence tolerance for toxic behaviors. Adults who were criticized or invalidated as children may unconsciously accept similar treatment from partners, believing it is normal. They may rationalize disrespect, gaslighting, or controlling behavior because their nervous system interprets it as familiar love dynamics. These patterns often prevent them from recognizing healthy boundaries or asserting their needs. The conclusion is that early emotional experiences shape not only who we are drawn to, but also what we consider acceptable, emphasizing that unhealed wounds can distort judgment and attract unhealthy relational dynamics. The influence of childhood trauma extends to the intensity of attraction. Many people unconsciously associate emotional chaos with passion because that was the pattern of their early attachments. Dramatic highs and lows in relationships mimic the instability of childhood, creating the illusion of deep connection. Adults may mistake turbulence for love, repeating cycles of conflict and reconciliation. The conclusion is that our childhood experiences program emotional responses, causing us to seek familiar intensity, which can mask the absence of true emotional safety, stability, and mutual respect in adult relationships. Children who experience neglect often have low self-esteem, which influences partner selection. They may seek individuals who validate their worth intermittently or require them to earn affection continuously. This reinforces dependency and perpetuates insecurity in adulthood. People with these wounds might overlook kindness or consistency in favor of partners who trigger familiar patterns of pursuit and approval. The conclusion is that early emotional neglect affects adult self-worth, which in turn dictates partner choices, demonstrating the profound link between childhood experiences and adult relational behavior. Trauma can also shape sexual dynamics in relationships. Adults with childhood emotional wounds may associate intimacy with control, power imbalance, or validation. Sexual attraction may intertwine with unresolved emotional needs, creating patterns where physical closeness becomes a substitute for emotional connection. These behaviors reflect attempts to resolve unmet childhood needs unconsciously. The conclusion is that childhood wounds influence not only emotional and psychological aspects of partner choice, but also the sexual dynamics, highlighting the far-reaching impact of early experiences on adult love life. Emotional attachment patterns learned in childhood affect how adults select partners who meet unconscious needs. Those with anxious attachment may choose caretakers, while avoidant individuals may select partners who demand too much closeness. Disorganized individuals often attract partners who replicate confusion and instability. In each case, the choice is rarely random. It is an attempt to recreate, confront, or master childhood experiences. The conclusion is that childhood wounds profoundly shape attraction. meaning that understanding and healing these patterns is essential for making conscious, healthy relationship choices. Many adults are unaware that their partner choices are rooted in early trauma. The repetition of patterns can feel inevitable, leaving people frustrated or blaming external factors for relationship struggles. Recognizing the connection between childhood wounds and attraction empowers individuals to question habitual behaviors, set boundaries, and seek partners who offer emotional safety rather than triggering old pain. The conclusion is that awareness of these patterns is the first step in breaking cycles, enabling individuals to choose partners based on compatibility, growth, and mutual respect rather than unconscious trauma-driven habits. Ultimately, childhood wounds influence who we are drawn to, how we perceive love, and what we tolerate in relationships. Understanding this connection allows us to take responsibility for our patterns, heal unresolved trauma, and consciously choose partners who support growth, respect, and emotional security. By reflecting on these influences, individuals can break cycles of repetition and create healthy, fulfilling relationships. The conclusion is that while childhood trauma exerts a strong influence on partner selection, awareness, healing, and conscious choices empower adults to build love lives free from the constraints of past wounds. Healing childhood trauma is the first step toward transforming the way you experience love. When you confront and process past wounds, you begin to understand the patterns that have dictated your relationships. Healing allows you to recognize unhealthy dynamics, emotional triggers, and subconscious behaviors rooted in childhood. By facing your pain instead of avoiding it, you create the opportunity to respond differently in relationships. The conclusion is that emotional healing provides the foundation for healthier love by breaking cycles of repetition and creating conscious, intentional relational behaviors. Self-awareness is a crucial aspect of healing childhood trauma. Understanding how past experiences influence your reactions, expectations, and attachment patterns empowers you to make conscious choices in love. Awareness allows you to identify when you are overreacting, avoiding intimacy, or seeking validation in unhealthy ways. By observing these patterns without judgment, you reclaim control over your emotional responses. The conclusion is that self-awareness transforms your love life by allowing you to interact from a place of insight and intentionality, rather than repeating old trauma-driven behaviors unconsciously. Establishing boundaries is another essential part of healing and transforming your relationships. Childhood trauma often teaches you that your needs are secondary or that asserting yourself leads to rejection. Healing involves learning to honor your own needs and communicate them clearly to partners. Boundaries create safety, respect, and predictability in relationships, which fosters trust and intimacy. The conclusion is that setting and maintaining boundaries is a direct result of healing, allowing you to attract and sustain relationships where love is mutual, consistent, and nurturing rather than conditional or harmful. Emotional regulation is a vital skill that develops through healing childhood trauma. Trauma often leaves individuals reactive, anxious, or avoidant in love because their nervous systems are tuned to survival patterns. Healing helps you recognize triggers, process emotions healthily, and respond calmly instead of reacting impulsively. When you regulate your emotions, you reduce conflict, build trust, and create stability in relationships. The conclusion is that learning emotional regulation through healing enables you to approach love with clarity and maturity, fostering deeper and more secure connections with partners. Healing also transforms self-worth, which is fundamental to the way you love. Childhood trauma often instills feelings of unworthiness or inadequacy, leading to overgiving, people-pleasing, or settling in relationships. Processing these wounds cultivates self-acceptance and confidence, allowing you to recognize your inherent value. When you respect and love yourself, you naturally attract partners who honor and cherish you. The conclusion is that healing strengthens self-worth, which directly impacts partner choice, emotional health, and the ability to engage in relationships from a place of balance rather than fear or deficiency. Trauma healing encourages vulnerability, which is essential for authentic love. Many adults hide their true selves because childhood experiences taught them that exposure leads to rejection or pain. Healing creates a safe internal environment, giving you the courage to share emotions, fears, and desires with partners openly. Vulnerability fosters intimacy, trust, and emotional closeness that was previously inaccessible due to childhood wounds. The conclusion is that the process of healing removes barriers to vulnerability, allowing you to fully participate in loving, transparent, and emotionally connected relationships. Healing childhood trauma reshapes attachment patterns, making secure relationships possible. Adults with unresolved trauma often exhibit anxious, avoidant, or disorganized behaviors that sabotage love. Through therapy, self-reflection, and consistent practice, these patterns can be identified and altered. As attachment becomes more secure, fear of abandonment diminishes, trust increases, and emotional stability grows. The conclusion is that healing allows for the development of healthy attachment, which transforms your ability to connect deeply and safely in romantic partnerships, creating enduring love based on security and respect rather than fear or repetition of past patterns. Mindfulness and reflection are tools that support transformation after trauma. By observing your thoughts, emotions, and reactions without judgment, you gain insight into how past wounds influence present behavior. This awareness allows you to choose conscious responses instead of reacting from old pain. Mindfulness also helps regulate emotions, reduces anxiety, and improves communication in relationships. The conclusion is that incorporating reflective practices in healing equips you with the ability to respond thoughtfully in love, fostering healthier, more stable, and more fulfilling romantic experiences. Healing encourages forgiveness, both for oneself and others, which deeply affects how you love. Childhood trauma often leaves lingering anger, resentment, or guilt, which distorts perceptions of love and creates barriers to intimacy. Learning to forgive does not mean excusing harmful behavior, but releasing its hold over your emotional state. Forgiveness opens space for genuine connection, empathy, and compassion in relationships. The conclusion is that healing through forgiveness allows you to engage in love freely, unburdened by past pain, enhancing the quality and depth of your adult relationships. Ultimately, healing childhood trauma transforms love by breaking cycles of pain, building self-awareness, and cultivating emotional intelligence. It allows you to set boundaries, regulate emotions, embrace vulnerability, and develop secure attachment. Healing empowers you to choose partners consciously, recognize unhealthy patterns, and create relationships based on respect, safety, and mutual growth. The conclusion is that while childhood trauma shapes initial patterns in love, the healing process offers a profound opportunity to transform your relational experiences, enabling authentic, balanced, and fulfilling connections that reflect self-respect, awareness, and emotional maturity.